How did you get to New York? What's the story?
Oh my gosh. How did I get to New York? I drove. I got to New York. I was in college in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon School of Drama. And I studied as an actor there and a musical theater student. And I knew I wanted to be on Broadway kind of my whole life. So I knew I had to go to New York because that's where it is. So after graduation, I came straight here.
How did you get to Carnegie Mellon?
I got to Carnegie Mellon because when I was in high school, I grew up in LA. Well, I flew to Carnegie Mellon. But I went to an arts high school in LA called LACSA, and I knew I wanted to go to college for musical theater. And two girls who were seniors when I was a freshman, I think, or maybe a sophomore, they had both gotten into Carnegie Mellon and I admired them. And so I went, what is Carnegie Mellon? So then I started researching it, and then I went there and I went, this is it. I just knew in my gut, this is my school. And thank God I got in.
What was the gut telling you? What do you think you figured out about the place?
It was just a knowing. I just kind of felt it. I went, this is it. And yeah, that's really all I can say. I mean, I went to other universities and I didn't feel that same feeling. I just kind of knew right away. And with Carnegie, it just felt very instinctual. It's something I just really knew.
When you were growing up, I assume we talked a little bit about this before we recorded, but you were performative, I would imagine.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. What do you remember about growing up like that?
Yeah, I always had a ton of energy growing up, and I was also very ambitious and a bit bossy. And so I would make my cousins perform with me. And so basically every holiday, I grew up in a really big family. So we'd all get together at my grandparents' house. They lived in California. And I would make everyone do skits with me, and I would choreograph them. I would put them together. I would write them, and everyone had to sit, like every aunt, uncle, my grandparents, and watch us perform. And I was probably, 8 when I started doing that. But I just fell in love with performing. I've always just loved expressing emotion. And I like entertaining people. I've always liked that. And yeah. What was your question?
Well, what you remember about becoming somebody
performative.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I just, it was something I loved to do. I started dancing first and I fell in love with dance. And then my parents put me in this musical theater summer program when I was probably 8. And I went there till I was maybe 13. And I did that every summer. And I just knew in my gut, this is it. This is what I have to do. I just love the camaraderie. I love the community. I love the energy. And I love expressing my emotions through dance and song and acting.
Do you remember if you got early signs from teachers that you had something?
Not really. I don't feel when I was really young, I don't remember any specific teacher telling me, you need to be an actor or you need to be an artist. I think I just maybe knew that, and I was just going with that. And my parents were very supportive, and they just kind of let me do what I wanted to do. But it wasn't until I think I got into, it was the musical theater summer camp. Diane Feldman, she was the head of that program, and I believed from her that I could do it. She really inspired me and she really supported me. So it wasn't my academic teachers, it was more my summer school teachers. And then once I got into high school, I had really amazing teachers who supported me as well.
What do you remember her telling you?
Gosh, that's a good question. I definitely don't remember, but I think there was just, again, I keep going back to this knowing feeling. There was just this feeling between us where I just felt so seen by her. And I felt that she really believed in me. And she also gave me a lot of great roles in the summer shows. So I think that made me have confidence in myself that I could do this. And I don't know, I think maybe people probably told me, you can do this, or I don't know, you're going to be a star one day. Maybe there were things like that, but I think it was how people nurtured me. I think I really felt taken care of, and that made me feel that I could do it, because I just figured they wouldn't be nurturing me so much if they didn't believe in me, possibly. I don't know.
I don't know if you can know this, but it sounds like you also believed that you had something from an early age. What do you make of that? Was that feedback you were receiving, or something that was more about you knowing yourself in a way, knowing what you were capable of?
Yeah, I think from a young age, I've always had a strong sense of self. I think, I don't know, I think a little bit, maybe I was born with that, but I think also my parents very much nurtured that in me. But yeah, I think also maybe seeing how people would react to me when I'd perform, people would enjoy it. So I think that also gave me confidence, seeing people feel something from my performance. So that probably helped too.
The whole time as you're ascending through high school and then Carnegie Mellon, did you always know New York was the destination? Was that pretty clear or not necessarily?
Yeah, I did. I really knew I wanted to be on Broadway. I said, this is my dream. I still have this pamphlet from when I was 6 years old at summer camp. And my grandma had it in all of her things before she passed away. And it said, "Hi, my name is Gabby. I'm 6 years old. And I'm going to be an actress when I grow up." And so I knew that I really wanted to be on stage. And, again, I think it was just a self-belief in me that I knew I had.
I don't know how well you remember this, but the early months of you arriving here, I think if I heard you correctly, you drove here.
I think so.
What did you already have connections when you arrived? Tell me about the early, weeks and months of you being in New York.
Yeah, I mean, Carnegie is such an amazing program, and they really set you up for success. So basically your senior year, you do a showcase. You do it in New York and LA. And basically you perform a scene and a monologue, or a scene and a song. What I did a scene and a song, since I do musical theater. And basically they invite casting directors and agents and people in the industry to come and see it. So what's great is that we go to New York and we have all the casting directors for all the Broadway shows at our showcase. And so you get to be seen that way. And then you also have the agents. So what's great is that more likely than not, you'll have a lot of agents who are reaching out to meet with you. And kind of the same thing how I felt about Carnegie, I felt the same way with my agency. I knew I wanted to be with a specific agency because I had also seen other people that I admired who had been with them. So that was another feeling where I went, oh, I need to be with them. And then luckily I was able to meet with them, and then I signed with them right away. And so I feel very fortunate. I think we all feel very fortunate from going to that school, because they really set us up for success, where most of us graduated already having agents and already auditioning. So we kind of already felt that we were in the industry before we graduated. And even people leave school, years earlier because they'll start auditioning. I'm really happy that I stayed the whole time because I just loved my college experience. But yeah, they set us up so we didn't have to do all of the extra legwork that can be really tough.
Yeah. If I understand this correctly, so you come up to New York with your classmates, and I think you said it's a showcase that you put on. How does that work? There's like a off-Broadway venue where you perform? Tell me about that.
We were at the Snapple Theater, which I think it's named something differently now. But me and my best friend, me and her drove up, and then I think I got a hotel. My mom came up to stay with me, and everybody just kind of is staying in different places. And it's basically, I guess, we're there. The showcase is, I think, 2 days, maybe a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And then we have probably Thursday and Friday to do meetings. And then we have to be back at school on Monday. Okay. So it's kind of a week of events, shall I say.
Yeah. And so what happened with you? So you perform, and then what happened?
I performed, and then I took a bunch of meetings with different people, and I got my agents, and I was auditioning right away. And I auditioned for this show called American Idiot.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting it. And that was, I guess I graduated in May, and that started, I think, in August. And so I just knew I was going on the road for 6 months. So that was my kind of first that was my first real job, I would say.
American Idiot was both a Broadway show and a traveling show.
And then it went on tour. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was on Broadway, then it closed, and then it went on tour.
So you immediately get I would imagine, an incredible position.
Yeah, amazing position. Yeah.
How common is it for somebody coming out of college to get a role of that stature?
I think it's happening more often than not these days. I think back in the day when I was at school and probably before, it would maybe be here and there. But honestly, now all these kids are coming out of school and they're starring on TV shows or they're starring in Broadway shows. I feel that it's happening more often now. But I felt very lucky. It's a really hard industry. So I felt super lucky.
Did that feel like a dream realized or not quite yet when you got that position?
It did, but it was funny because that show, it's based off the music of Green Day.
Yeah.
I was not a Green Day fan growing up. I never listened to punk music. And it was funny because people would always say, oh, you should be in this show, because I looked similar to the girl who had originated the role on Broadway. And I went, no, I don't think that's for me. I'm not really into that music. But then I got the material and I went, oh my gosh, this music is amazing. And the way that Tom Kitt, who did the orchestrations, did all the music, the way he put it all together was just sublime. And so once I started working on the material, I felt, oh my gosh, I have to get this. If I don't get this, I feel like I'll die. And I mean, after my last callback, because basically you'll audition, and then you'll get a callback, and then maybe you'll have another callback, then maybe another callback, because more and more people are starting to see you now. Because first it's just the casting director, and then you can have the casting director and the director, and then you can have the casting director and the producers, and then you have the whole team. And so I think I went in maybe 3 or 4 times. And I remember I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I was going back to my sublet and I threw up all over the street. I threw up everywhere. I had been holding in so many nerves through that experience. Then after my last callback, when it was done, I purged all over the street. Yeah, which is not great, but I haven't done that since.
Do you remember the call, I guess, that you got offering you the role?
Oh,
what
I'll
happened?
never forget it. Yeah, one of my agents, he called and he said, Gab, he said, you got the role or something like that. Or no. He said, are you sitting down? And I went, yes. Yeah, I'm sitting down. He's like, you got the role. And then this is so me. I always do this. And I say, are you sure? Are you sure it's me? Are you sure I got it? He went, yes, Gabby, you got the role. And I said, is it the role of what's her name? He said, yes, Gabby, you got that role. Are you sure it's what's her name? That's the character. Wow. And he went, yes. And so, yeah, I probably blacked out afterwards.
Were you stunned, or in some ways did this feel like this was going to happen? I don't know, that you had a belief that this was not so far-fetched that you could believe it was happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always felt in my heart that I know things will work out because I love this so much and I feel just meant to be doing this. But I think when it comes to roles, I can sometimes be stunned. Where I think with that role and with another role or a couple other roles that I've done, I felt a little stunned where I went, oh my God. Not that I couldn't do it, but that I can't believe they picked me.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many incredibly talented people. And I think I feel confused that I got chosen.
Yeah.
But also knowing that I can do it and knowing that I know I'm talented, but it's just so much competition that I think you just don't know what you'll be picked for.
Yeah. You're 22 years old at this time, 23, something 22. Like that? 22. So you immediately, I guess, is that role technically a Broadway role? You know, I know that you said the show had closed and you were going on the road.
Yeah, it's the same show. It's just on the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a Broadway position that you had gotten.
Yeah, just on the road, I would say. Because certain different shows, that was a Broadway, or that was a production contract, which is basically the same contract as Broadway. I could totally be saying this wrong. It might have been a different contract. I'm not sure. But basically, yes, it's the same caliber and this exact same show.
What do you remember about those 6 months?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it flew by so fast, but during during the tour, I think I felt that it was the longest thing ever for me, just because it was really intense. And the show's really intense. It's very punk rock. It's an hour and a half, no intermission, which is amazing. But it was just 110% at all times. And at that time in my life, I was able to do that and give 110%. Now I'm paying for it with my neck and all that stuff. But the role was amazing. I loved playing the character I played. She felt so similar to myself. And I didn't really feel that I had to act. I just felt that she lived in me and I just got to be a vessel for her. And so that was amazing. I really met some amazing people too. Like one of my best friends to this day is from that show. And I just had never toured before. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I was just kind of, okay, let's just kind of see what this is like. And it was hard in the sense where I'd never been a lead in a professional show like that as well. So, and not having to perform 8 times a week and travel on your day off and how to take care of yourself. I didn't know that because, again, I would always give 110%. And I just assumed my voice would always be there. My body would always be there. And luckily when you're 22, it is pretty much there. Yeah. Like I did luck out in that front. But it was still really hard just on the body and the voice and emotions and not really knowing how to navigate it all because it's the first time doing it.
Tell me about the character.
Oh my gosh. What's her name? That's her name. And she was really young and she falls in love with this guy, Johnny, and they just have this super passionate love affair, which is always fun to play. And she's super free-spirited and she's rebellious and she just marches to the beat of her own drum. But she's also very vulnerable and she's very caring and she also is responsible and she kind of takes care of Johnny, I would say, but then has the courage to leave him. So I think it's just it was a really good, it was a very great woman to embody because I felt that I got to play the full spectrum of being a woman, a young woman.
You alluded to this, but the task, the grind of the reality of being on tour like that, you're literally performing 7-8 times a week. I think as somebody who loves to go to the theater and musicals like that, talk to me about how the fuck you do that, how you're able to maintain just the physicality, the task at hand at such a high level every single day. I know you said you were 22 years old at that time, but what do most people not understand about what it takes to perform at that level every single day, day in and day out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel that my dad's going to hate me for saying this, but he always say, "Oh, you only go to work for 3 hours a night," Yeah. But it's 3 hours where you have to be on at 100%. And it takes all of you to show up. And for me, the physical part is hard. The vocal part is hard. But for me, it's really the emotional part. It's the mental part. It's being able to show up and give so much of yourself to an audience every night and give that energy without, I guess, giving all of yourself, which is something I've just recently learned. I think for so long I would give everything I had and I had nothing else in the tank. And then I would get really burned out. And I think just now I'm realizing, I can actually give 80 and that's enough. Like that's okay. And it takes a lot of maintenance. I love self-care. So I have no problem, getting my massages and eating well. I think those things are crucial. Just really taking care of your body and hydrating and sleeping. And I love doing yoga and meditating and going to therapy and talking to your friends. And I think the biggest thing is that you really need to have balance which is really hard to have in our industry, and it's really hard to have on the road. So that's something I still struggle with, where I never had balance before. My work would kind of consume me, especially when you're on the road. That's kind of just what you're doing. And you don't really have the energy to go out and do things if you're doing a really hard, demanding role. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I get so much fulfillment from performing. So much joy comes to my life from doing that. But then at the other hand, you do sacrifice a lot of other things in your personal life, or just other areas of your life. So yeah, it's definitely a grind, because you don't really have a day to recover. You travel on your day off, which is on Monday, and you travel Monday, you get there Tuesday, and you do the show that night. So your body isn't getting the rest it needs. You're not being fully restored. Maybe if you don't have a lot of demand on you, maybe you can be fully restored, but I don't really think it's possible. It's not the most sustainable. And I do hope that things can change in that realm. I would love to do less shows a week. And luckily with the show I just did, I did 7 shows a week as opposed to 8. And so, things are changing for sure, but yeah, it's hard.
Were you an athlete growing up too? Was there a component to, I would imagine a lot of these people, you may have that background to be able to take physically the punishment and the tasks that you have to perform every day. Yeah,
I think honestly that's why I've been able to do it. I never really thought about it that way, but growing up, I love sports. I still love sports to this day. But I played volleyball and basketball and softball, but I did gymnastics for a very long time, and I danced. So those are 2 very regimented skill sets. Yeah. And I always was very competitive too, I guess, when I was growing up. I loved winning. I always wanted to win. So I think I've always pushed myself really hard from when I was young, which I think has its good sides and downsides. Yeah.
So you get done with the tour and you're still super young. Talk to me about what happens in your life? What happens in your career? Is it on to the next thing for you? What was next for you?
Well, whenever I finish a show, I always need to take a lot of time off, where other people don't always do that. They kind of go off the momentum, and, they have people calling and they want you to do this show and that show. But for me, I'm just not able to do that. But I remember when I finished American Idiot, I was getting a bunch of calls to come in for new shows, and I was just so tired. Yeah. And I just felt I needed a break. And so I'm not really sure what I did after that, but I remember I started auditioning again, like shortly thereafterwards. And then I ended up making my Broadway debut a couple of years later in a show called Pippin.
Talk to me about that. What happened? How did you get that role?
I got that role. It's so funny. This always happens to me where I won't like it at first. And then it's exactly what I need. Because I was on a family reunion, I think in Louisiana or Texas or something. And I got this audition for Pippin for the leading player. And I said, or to be in the ensemble and understudy the leading player. And I said, what? No, this is not me. I don't want to do this. But it's always this feeling I get when I resist something. In my gut knows I have to do it, but I'll feel in my chest kind of anxiety around it. And that's what I kind of know I have to go for it, because my gut is saying yes. And it was a lot of material. And I remember I just learned the material, and I kind of just didn't really have any expectations. I remember a woman who went to my college was playing the role of the leading player. So I knew I would understudy her, and I knew she was amazing. And that would be really cool. And it had just won all these Tony Awards. And I just went, oh, it must be really good. But I just didn't know anything really about it. I knew the show Pippin, and also it was Stephen Schwartz who wrote it. He went to Carnegie Mellon. And so I don't know if he created Pippin at that school, but I think he created Godspell at that school. But I knew I had all these ties to it, but I still just didn't really have a feeling about it. And I auditioned, And I just was kind of, okay. I just went, all right, cool. I did it. Felt good. And then I think, gosh, it's wild when you can't remember these stories as clearly anymore. But I think I went to a callback. I had like maybe 2 or 3 callbacks and I felt good about it. And one of my best friends at the time, I remember I performed it for her and it just felt good. I went, oh, this is good. And then of course, once I start getting callbacks, then I fall in love with the material and then I fall in love with the role and then I really want it. And I remember the casting director, I went last that day for the final callback and he kind of took me aside and he said something. I don't remember what he said, but it made me feel, oh, he wants me for this role. He believes in me for this. And then I remember I just went in and I felt really confident. And I really just, I didn't hold anything back. The leading player is basically the master of ceremonies for the show. And you do a lot of acrobatics because in this version, we had acrobats in our show. So I just came in and I brought a baton and I had never done that in my life. But one of my best friends from college, she said, I baton twirl. I'll teach you how to baton twirl. And, just do something easy. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I just did something really easy. And I think I did a spin around and I just threw it up in the air. Then I caught it. It was pretty dumb, honestly, what I did. It wasn't anything spectacular. And I remember one of the music directors of that show, he said, yeah, I didn't know if you were either crazy or amazing because I pulled out everything. I just kind of did what I wanted. And I think it served me well. I just trusted and I went big. And I ended up booking that role. And when I got that, I freaked out because I knew that I was going to be on Broadway. And I was so excited. Yeah, I was just really over the moon. And I think I started rehearsals maybe shortly after, like 2 weeks later, because I was replacing somebody in the show in the ensemble. And Pippin was probably the gift that kept on giving to my life because I did 3 iterations of it. I did it on Broadway and then I was in the ensemble and I understudied. And then I took over the role of leading player on the tour. And I did that for about 9 months. And then during COVID, I got to play the role in Australia. And so it was kind of in my life for 8 years or something. And I met my best friends to this day. I met a boyfriend during that time. I mean, I just had all these amazing things and amazing people come into my life during that adventure. And it was a really amazing role to play because it was a true triple threat role. I got to dance, I got to sing, I got to act, all at a very high degree. And I'd never really been able to do that. And the dance was Fosse, which is an incredible dance style created by Bob Fosse. And I'd never really danced like that. And so that was really exciting for me. And I just felt very content during that experience. I felt like I had nothing else to give when it comes to my talents. I said, I'm doing everything. I'm dancing so hard. I'm singing so hard. I'm acting so hard. I'm hula hooping. I'm doing acrobatics. I'm on a swing doing trapeze. I just felt like I had nothing else to give. I went, this is it. I'm like, I don't need any more. I think I've exhausted all my talents.
While you're doing that role for all those years, did you feel any imposter syndrome, or was it mostly more of a sense of alignment that I'm supposed to be doing this? This makes sense that I have this role, that I'm doing this thing.
It definitely felt right that I was supposed to be there. That definitely felt right. I think when it comes to imposter syndrome, I think it's more my own mind. If I struggle or if things get hard, then I can believe I'm not supposed to be there if I'm struggling. But I think I always know in my gut when I book a role that it was meant to happen. And I really believe that all the roles that I get really align with my personal life. Like it feels this kind of spiritual alignment that it's supposed to happen. And it's supposed to teach me lessons about who I am as Gabby as well. It's kind of a lot of like art imitating life and vice versa. But I think if anything, I can get in my own way and that can make me feel like an imposter, but not because of the environment or not because of the role I got. It's more just because if I'm not living up to my standards, then I can feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And then that can not bode well for me.
Yeah. What happened to you? And I guess this is probably a broader question about what happened to performers during the COVID years. I mean, what did you do? What happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was scary. It was crazy because our industry completely shut down and that's never happened.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were out of jobs. So that was not ideal for us. But I think on the other hand, I think it was nice to have a break. I think the 8-show week schedule was getting to people and everybody was getting sick with COVID and shows were having to shut down. And I think being able to have just time, if you've been lucky and fortunate enough to perform 8 shows a week, even though it's hard, I think it was nice to have a little bit of a break and also focus on other areas of your life that maybe had been neglected because you didn't have the time before. But I just moved into a new apartment in Harlem, and when COVID hit, my dad was saying, you should come stay with us. My parents live in Maryland. And so I went to my parents' house and then I ended up just staying for, I guess, 2 years. And then Australia called about Pippin, I guess maybe that summer of COVID, and I would leave in the fall. And I was very lucky to be working during that time. And that was a very life-changing experience being going to Australia and performing during the pandemic.
I don't know how widely known this information is with people that work on Broadway, but just from a financial perspective, working and living in New York and touring, did you always feel that, given that you kind of leapt onto Broadway right away post-college, that you were comfortable living in New York? Is that is the financial stress real even for people that are on that level working on Broadway shows, or not necessarily?
Yeah. I mean, I think the financial stress is on Broadway performers all the time because you don't know how long a show is going to run.
Yeah.
And people have other expenses. People have families and people have student debt. People have a lot else that they have to put their money towards. So I think there's always that little stress in the back of your mind, but I think it grows or shrinks depending on what your financial situation is. And I think that for me, I think I've just had a trust that it will all work out. And I've always had a strong faith system and like belief system, and just things will work out. And I'll do what I need to do. And I've had other jobs. Like I worked at a meditation studio and I've taught and to supplement income. But, yeah, it's hard. You have to support yourself in other ways. And which I think is actually great. So you're not relying, your whole life is not dependent on your getting a role in a certain show. I think it's nice to have other things because then you have a little bit more control, and not everything is, waiting to see if you're going to get a job and get the next payment. It's nice to be able to be generating your own stuff, whether that's another job you're taking or whether you're creating your own stuff. It's nice to have other outlets, but it's definitely a financial stress at different times. It depends how much. I mean, some jobs pay really, really, really well. So you're not stressing then, but then you can maybe not work for a year after that. And then you can start stressing again.
Yeah. Is there a minimum for people that work on Broadway shows? Is there a floor? Because I'm assuming there's a variation in how much people are getting paid depending on what their role is. Is there a minimum amount of money that people get per week, per month, who are working on Broadway shows? To me, as like a total outsider, I think growing up, I just assumed these people are all like doing very well. They're very comfortable living in New York because they're performing at the highest level. But I would imagine that's probably wrong, and that a lot of people that are working on even the most popular shows may be struggling quite a bit living in New York.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's had such a different experience, but I think New York is very expensive.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of money to live here and to live here comfortably. And I think if you're in the ensemble of a show, you're making Broadway minimum. And I think that you can live comfortably, but you still have to pay attention to what you're spending.
Yeah.
But if you're playing a lead role on Broadway, depending on what show it is, that's very comfortable, I would say. Especially if you're very known in the industry. I think those people have very comfortable lives. But again, with any profession, if you're spending, shit ton of money, then it's, you have to rectify that somehow.
Yeah. Do you know what the floor is for an ensemble cast member?
I think the minimum is maybe $2,400 a week.
Okay.
Possibly. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but I feel that it's maybe around there if you're in the ensemble.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's good money. Yeah. But it's still, you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And like some people I know work other jobs too while they're on Broadway. They're fitness instructors or other things. And that might be because they just want to make more money. I know people do real estate too while they're still in shows. So it works, but it could always be more.
Yeah.
Not to say that more is always better, but I just think for the grind that we're doing, it's always nice to have a little extra cushion because you don't know when the next job's going to come.
So when you go to Australia and then obviously you're back in New York now, what's the story between you getting back post Australia and what you've been up to for the last, I guess now 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. The last 3 or 4 years have been really intense. Yeah. So COVID ended ish. And I came back to, I think I went back to after Australia, I went back to my parents. And then I was a part of a show called Paradise Square. And it was a new musical. I'd been a part of it since 2018. And we were doing an out-of-town Broadway tryout. So basically a lot of Broadway shows will try out their shows in other cities that have big Broadway followings. And I went to Chicago for, I guess, maybe 3 months. We did out-of-town tryout for that show, which was awesome. It was a really beautiful show with really incredibly talented people. And we did that. And then we found out we were going to Broadway, even though I think we knew we were going to Broadway, but we went to Broadway that winter. And so we went to Broadway, we opened, and we had a lot of drama with our show, just behind the scenes, dealing with people involved with the show that didn't make our show look great because of the drama that was surrounding it. But the show itself was really beautiful, in my opinion, and people had a really great response to it. It basically was set in the 1800s, and it dealt with Irish people and African American people living together and intermingling and intermarrying during that period. And it was just a really beautiful story about survival and equality. But our show closed pretty fast. It closed after probably 4 months. It was really short. I'd never been a part of an experience like that where you're in a Broadway show and it closes quickly. So that was a new thing for me. But I think I was happy to move forward because it just had taken a toll on me and a lot of us emotionally and mentally. So then after that, I didn't really know if I wanted to do musical theater maybe again because I just felt kind of burnt out from COVID into Australia, into Paradise Square, where I think I just felt that I wanted a simpler life. I just didn't want any more drama. I just maybe wanted to do something not so hard. And I'd been doing this for so long, like my whole life. And I think it was kind of catching up to me. And so I was like, I want to do more TV and more film. So I did a couple of films during that time, which was cool to do. But I think I still always miss theater. And so I ended up doing a play, which I'd never done a play in New York, but I was a standby. So I was basically off stage. And so it was a 5-person play 5-person play. And then there were 3 of us standbys who we would just wait off stage in our dressing rooms. And if the person was sick, then you would go on. The woman that I understudied, she never got sick, so I never went on. But honestly, it was a really great experience for me because I think the universe was telling me, Gabby, you need to just sit. You need to sit, you need to heal and learn from this experience. And I learned a lot from watching other people create a show, and I'd never done that before. And it was really nice to have the break. It was nice to not have to perform in front of people every night and go through, your cortisol spiking and all the adrenaline, and just to feel a little bit more balanced. I think I went from very, very high to kind of pretty low, but a low that I needed, and low not in a negative way, but just low and low energy wise, where I got to just chill. But me chilling, it's hard for me to sit still for a long period of time. I've realized I like to perform. And so I think I just kind of put it out to the universe. I said, okay, I'm ready to be back on stage. I want to be back on stage. I want to lead a show. And I just kept saying that. And then I started getting a lot of auditions to lead different shows. And that's when Moulin Rouge musical came around. And I had auditioned for that show when it first came out to be in the ensemble. And that didn't go my way, and I was devastated because I thought I had done so well, and I thought I'd given my all, and my best friend was cast in that show, and we were like, this is going to be us together, like we're going to do it together. And so I was really sad when that didn't happen. And then I think right before COVID, it came back around to go on tour, and I felt better with it, but I still kind of felt it wasn't totally right for me, because I think at first I went in for the ensemble, and then I went, which felt really right. And then I went in to play Satine, who's the lead role of that show. And I felt good, but I just didn't feel like it was exactly the right fit. But something did feel inside of me that I wanted to play this role, but I had a lot of fear surrounding it. And so I didn't get it that time. And then I went in another time, and I felt a little bit better, but it still wasn't right. And then I guess maybe I auditioned for that show 4 times, maybe. It might have been 3 or 4 times. I can't remember. I'm like, how many times was that? I think it was actually my 4th time is when I actually got it. So I came in for the last time. And at this point, I'd been in so many times. I went, I know this material. I was like, I don't need to work on it. I maybe sang through it a couple times. I read through the sides, basically the acting scenes a couple of times. And when I was singing it, I went, oh, this sounds different in my voice. This feels better. This feels easier in my voice. Maybe I can do this, because I think I was most scared about the vocals, because it's a very intense vocal show. And I went into audition, and it just felt really right. And I went, oh no, I really want this. And this was to play Satine on the tour of the show. And I went in twice, and it was a very easy process. I think because I'd been in before and they'd already seen me, and everything just kind of aligned. And I really needed a job at that point. I was really low in my bank account. And when you do an off-Broadway play, you don't make a ton of money. And I was kind of just really scraping by on my savings. And I really needed a good job that was going to support me. And I got that job, and I fell to the floor sobbing because I needed it. So not only did I want to play the role so badly, I needed it. I really needed the money. And so I found that I got it. I started rehearsals maybe a week later, and then I went on the road for a year, and I got back this past September. So that's kind of been the last 3 to 4 years of my life. Yeah.
Have you been off since you got back in September?
Yeah. I did, when I first got back, I remember I did a couple readings of new shows, which is basically when someone will be workshopping a new play or a new musical, and you'll just come in and read, and sometimes you'll get paid. Sometimes you're just doing it for free because it's for friends or whatever. And, but I remember when I got back, I told my agents, my manager, I said, I can't work for a while. I really need to recover. And that was the best thing I could have ever done. That experience was really intense for me. It was kind of one of those shows where, or one of those roles, it really breaks you open, but also breaks you down. Where I said previously, where I'll do these roles where it feels like it's life imitating art, or I feel like I need to learn a lesson from it. This was that experience for me, where not only where I was able to open up all these different parts of myself into this incredible role that I hadn't accessed previously in other roles, or maybe even in my own life, I felt that I was also seeing a lot of the dark parts of myself as well. Kind of everything in my life from when I was little and habits, everything kind of hit a head during this experience. And so it was kind of a reckoning for me to look at myself. And it was really beautiful. I grew so much. I learned so much, but it was also really brutal because I definitely had to face a lot of parts of myself that I didn't really want to face and that I couldn't really face during that experience, where now I've been able to face being out of it. But during that time, I had a lot of resistance and I had a lot of fear, but I also knew I was right where I was supposed to be. And I knew that I was meant to be playing that role for many different reasons. And I'm really, really grateful for it, because now on the other side of it, I'm in this new chapter of my life, and I feel like that was the kickoff. That's kind of what set me into this new chapter of life for me as an artist in person.
If you're comfortable talking about it, what did you work through? How did you change?
That's like, that's a long-winded answer for me. But I guess to kind of sum it up, I think just I've always been a perfectionist since I was little, and I think it served me in certain ways, but I think the dark sides of it really took over during that experience. Nothing was kind of ever good enough for me. My standards have always been so high, but that can also really get into my way, or get in my own way. And I just had to face that part of myself, that perfectionism, and how do I heal that? And how do I be kind to myself? And how do I face my mind every day? And I had been working on training my mind and rewiring my brain for like different things. But this was really the test, because I felt so vulnerable during this experience. I think that was the biggest difference, is that I'd never felt so vulnerable in a role. Satine is a very vulnerable role. You're really exposing yourself in so many ways. Physically, you're barely wearing any clothes the whole show. You're just kind of in a corset and your whole body's out. And vocally, it was very exposing, because you sing all, you're singing in every part of your voice, and I was singing all over my range from the lowest to the highest. So I had to really expand in that front. And it was also very vulnerable acting and just being like in very much the feminine part of me. I've always kind of led with my masculine, I would say. Like I definitely am, I would say I'm very feminine, but my masculine has definitely dominated me in my career, where it was just like a lot of very like strong, like doer of female roles. I've been playing in like very more so aggressive roles. And Satine was very soft but also very tough. And that's why I loved her, because she really had both sides. But I had to really lean into the softness of her and her femininity. And that's what I've been wanting. I've been wanting to lean into that side, but I didn't know how vulnerable it was going to feel, on top of everything else feeling so vulnerable. And then being away from home and not having my family or my friends around as much, and traveling, that made me feel even more vulnerable. And so it was just kind of a hat on a hat on a hat, where eventually it kind of exploded, because I just couldn't take how vulnerable I felt. And I kept trying to, I think, control it, the vulnerability I was feeling. And eventually I had to release. And I kind of lost myself within that. I kind of lost that innate sense of Gabby who I've always had since I was little. And I kind of lost it within that role because I felt so consumed in the role because that was the only thing I could really control. And I didn't really feel like I had control of other aspects of my life because, again, I felt so vulnerable and and that was new to me. And because my perfectionist brain was so obsessed with getting everything right and playing this role. And so there were just so many things that were going on during that experience that made it feel very overwhelming for me. And I think going back, I would just, not take it all so seriously. I think I've always taken my jobs very seriously, like almost a little bit too seriously, where I can be consumed. And that's why I'm working on balance more and having other things going on in my life. And even being able to say no, saying like, I can't do that right now. Like I can't do that extra interview, or I can't do the show tonight. I have to call out because I need to take care of myself. So it's taught me a lot. And I'm really happy it all happened the way that it did, because I think it was a long time coming. I think eventually I was going to have this reckon with myself on these parts of myself that need to be healed. And I'm very grateful that I'm able to start that healing journey now.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How has that informed, if it has, what you want to prioritize next?
Yeah. My buzzwords these days are slow, less, ease, softness, balance. That's really the biggest thing. Life is wild and chaotic, and we're in really interesting times. And so I think because of that, it's even making me more so wanting to not take everything so seriously and to really have balance and to prioritize what's most important to me, which is connection and it is people. I love people. I love my friends. I love my family. I have incredible people in my life. And all that matters is that they're healthy and happy. And that's what comes first for me. Yes, I know I have to pay the bills and I'm going to maybe have to do things I don't want to do all the time. But I think my personal life, it's time for that to take precedence. Because I think my career has really guided my entire life. It's guided all my personal life choices as well. And I'm kind of ready to swing the pendulum the other way, where I can make more so of my choices. And I think I'm also afforded that because I've older now and I've paid my dues, or I've been in the business a long enough time where I'm able to say, I can say no to more things and choose things that are going to help my lifestyle more. So yeah, I'm really just focusing on, I really just want to be more present and flow more with the way life goes and not try to control it so much, and really listening to myself, like listening to my body. What is my body telling me? And I think, you get so many different voices throughout your life telling you, what you feel and what you need to do. And I've always respected authority, and I've always been really good at listening to other people's opinions. And I've always valued other people's opinions, but almost to a detriment, where I would kind of listen to them more than I would listen to myself. And I think honestly, at what, I'm 35 now, at this age, I think I'm really honestly just now learning how to truly listen to myself. And I think, especially in the industry, your body doesn't want to do 8 shows a week. It doesn't want to do that. I mean, maybe some people's do, but speaking for myself, my body doesn't want to do that. Yeah. So I think I'm in a situation now where I'm trying to figure out how to do that. How do I work in an industry that my soul, my body isn't on board with? And I think my soul and my body, that's number one. That's what knows best. So how do I live from my soul and do what I love to do within an industry that doesn't always support what's best for your body and your mind in specific ways? it's good for your body and your mind and emotions in certain ways. You get to express and you get to be curious and learn and heal yourself and people. But I think in other ways, it can just be really tough on the body with just traveling and not as stable. So I don't really have an answer to that. I'm kind of living it out now with how I'm just going to do what I love, but also take care of myself.
You talked about being a perfectionist earlier, and I think you've used that word at least once or twice. Do you think the concern there is that because to me, a lot of perfectionistic tendencies are common in very high performers. It's commonly, in my experience, a big reason why people believe they were able to ascend to the goals that they had set out for themselves in their life. But there is a tyrannical element to that. Is the concern for you, I'd be curious to know how you've dealt with this, that if you let that go, you've performed at the highest levels in your field. That is the concern, that you won't be able to do that without the little dictator living in your head. That is the perfectionist that's living in you. How do you think about that now?
Yeah, 110%.
Yeah.
It's really hard to let her go, let that part of me go. I call her the bulldozer.
Yeah.
And she has gotten me to where I am in my career because nothing was ever enough. You just had to keep going. But again, it's just everything has both sides. And I think I don't have to let her go, but I need to have a better relationship with her and not let her guide all my choices. My choices need to come from me. Like they need to come from my sense of self, like the deepest part of my soul. But the bulldozer can help me, give me that extra push, when I may be feeling kind of lazy and I don't want to, get up and work on something when I know I need to in order to achieve my long-term goals. But when I'm working and I start feeling stressed because I'm trying to figure something out, or I'm trying to sing something and, I'm not being able to figure it out right away. And the bulldozer is saying, keep going. That's when I have to say, you know what, girl, it's okay. I'll figure it out. Like, we don't have to figure it out right now.
Yeah.
We can figure it out later. So I think that's kind of again, balance. Like, that's the balance I'm finding, where how to make friends with all the parts of myself. So they're not steering the ship. So I'm steering the ship. So I can be in my listening to my body when I know enough is enough. It's really just saying you're enough. And people always say that you're enough. And I've always heard that throughout my career. Gabby, you're enough. And I'm like, I know I'm enough. I know. But I didn't really understand what they meant. And now I actually get it. Enough is me saying, I'm good. I'm tired and I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to stop working on this. This is enough for tonight. And I think I always maybe got offended when people would say that, because it made me feel that I didn't believe in myself, or I didn't think myself was enough. And I'm just, no, I do believe in myself to be enough. It's more, I guess, I don't know. I guess maybe I didn't believe in like my skills to be enough, or it just wasn't perfect enough, I guess, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess when you look back now at your career, do you think that, all of the work and the undeniable success you've had fundamentally was rooted in a childlike love of the work itself and the performing, or was that insidious perfectionist there really driving the ship from the beginning, like trying to fill some hole that maybe it's hard to parse out the two, but I would imagine you've probably given that some thought as well in the last probably 2 or 3 years. I could be wrong about that, but how do you, I ask in part because I feel like that's also a big part of people who I've met who have achieved objectively very difficult things to obtain in life, that perfectionist is there. But I'd be curious to know how you think about who has been driving the ship for most of your life to even get you to this point.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah. Might be both.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think that's what that's the journey that I'm on right now.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I'm figuring out. And I'm learning a lot. I do this kind of therapy called somatic therapy, and it's changed my life. I can't believe I just started doing that now. But it makes so much sense because I'm such a physical person and I'm all about the body and feelings. And so that's really changed my life. And it's honestly something that I'm working through as we speak at the moment. I'm kind of figuring out, why did I get involved in this? I mean, I know I've loved performing. I love expressing emotion. Like I love humanity. I love art. I love using my skills to express how I'm feeling. But there's probably a little bit of maybe a void there or something. And maybe that is why maybe the perfectionist is, trying to fill up that void to keep me going, when maybe if I just sat with that void, I would just know enough and maybe I wouldn't feel the need to maybe perform at a high level. And maybe I'd be fine performing just in my bedroom, or I don't know, maybe I'd want to do something else. I don't know. Yeah, I honestly don't know. Yeah. I'm really in process with that question, to be honest.
Last question I want to ask you, and I think I've asked almost every guest this question, is just about the idea of success, how you think about that. I don't know if that has changed the more you have achieved, if you feel like that insatiable drive has been satiated and you are good. What does success mean to you? Do you feel like you have achieved the level of success you are satisfied with? How do you think about that?
That's a really good question as well. I believe at this point in my life, success is about being content, how content you are.
Yeah.
And to be honest, this past year or these past 6 months since I got off Moulin Rouge, and I haven't really been working for the past 6 months, it's the most successful I felt.
Wow. Really?
To be honest. Because I've been doing a lot of deep, intense work on myself. And I feel really happy and I feel really content. And I think whatever I do next, if I'm able to come with this mindset, then I feel that I might feel the most amazing I've ever felt.
Yeah.
Because then I'm doing something with a different mindset where I'm good enough and I'm content. And I think it might make me feel happier when I'm working. And even with it being hard and even with it being demanding and even with it being a rigorous schedule, I feel with that mindset, which I've never had before with performing, could really change my life in that regard and might make me feel that success at that point is feeling content and happy doing something you love.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I definitely think the content part and being at peace is what's most important. I don't think success it's hard because it's really hard to get to Broadway.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get to a high level in your field. It takes a lot of work. So I think there is success in that, in working really hard and being really disciplined and having a lot of belief in yourself to reach your dreams. There is success in that. I don't think being famous is successful, but I think working at the top of your craft, I do think that is a form of success. But I think if you're not content and you're not happy, that's not a success, an overall success, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think success can be, it's like so many different things.
Yeah. Gabby, thank you.
I know. Thank you so much, Dan.